Welcome to the CompBio Cafe. We're your hosts, Melyssa and
Jenea.
And today we're going to talk about how to strategically diversify CompBio conferences. As a reminder, if you have any questions or comments to share, please email them to podcast@blackwomencompbio.org or leave us a voicemail at 1-302-715-2922. We may share your responses here during the show. This year is a big year for us because we'll be at 3 conferences. We're going to be at RECOM, which is Researching Computational Molecular Biology in Cambridge, Festival of Genomics and Biodata in Boston, and then Intelligent Systems for Molecular Biology in Montreal, which is the ISCB flagship conference. And so we'll be there. We'll have a booth. We're excited to meet people and also just kind of get a good landscape of CompBio. Any news? Any news you want to talk about, Jenea?
Yeah, I think by the time people hear this episode, maybe it won't be as fresh, but something I just thought was really interesting and wanted to point out was that this preprint came out April 5th of 2024. And the title of it, you can see it on bioRxiv, The Impact of Package Selection and Versioning on Single-Cell RNA Sequencing Analysis. This was basically a comparison between two very widely used packages called Seurat and ScanPy. If you do any single-cell analysis, you're probably very familiar with these two pieces of software. One is Python-based ScanPy, and the other is more R-based. So sometimes the preference between the two tools is simply just that, dependent on the user. I will say when I did my single-cell RNA-seq course at MSK, it was more ScanPy focused. So while I've been exposed to Seurat in the past, I'm just now more familiar with ScanPy and can potentially use some of Seurat's functions for certain types of pre-processing steps. But anyway, this discussion, I think, was pretty lively on social media before Raul Satija, who's the PI behind Seurat, responded on Twitter, and I thought his thread was really insightful and I think a good demonstration of how we continue to push each other in the academic and scientific space and can kind of use that momentum to create more collaboration as opposed to a false sense of competition. And basically Raul's thread on Twitter is, thanks for the comparison. While our tools largely find the same types of insight, there are some key areas where the implications and the interpretation of our tools differ because there are different considerations made in default parameters of our tool. And then there could also, as a result, there could be different types of cell types that might be, identified differently by these tools because, of these underlying parameter defaults. And that in turn could change how the average user who's not, computational person or maybe a software person could be interpreting their data. So because of that, he's like, we should be paying attention to what these defaults are and create more space to build a standard between Seurat and ScanPy. And this paper, I think, does highlight some key considerations, and it's actually an area that I'm focusing on. In one project of my thesis is, how we analyze certain types of transcriptomic data, especially when it comes to RNA processing. So I think these types of questions are things that we should be checking in periodically, because I think sometimes the default becomes one or two tools, and then people may not necessarily think about it ever again. There might be some tools like for for like sequencing alignment or things like that are pretty well studied and have a pretty robust repertoire of software that, may not necessarily need too much discussing unless there's like a major improvement in the field of how we do something fundamentally. But I just thought this was a good discussion. Even if you're not into single cell, I think it's good to see how this discussion is playing out. And once again, thank you for Twitter for being that platform.
I think it's interesting because I feel like in academia, we're so getting scooped is such a big fear, or having, a tool that works better or whatever. But I feel like in other industries, competition is not necessarily looked at as a bad thing. Like, it's looked
Mhm.
as, okay, like, you're, back and forth. Competition is looked as kind of like motivation to grow better and get like more insight on what your users might want from a tool. So I really appreciate the way he responded to that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like also appreciate the work that goes into comparing the tools. It does look like a really thorough analysis. So that's cool.
So if you're interested in looking at the thread in the preprint associated, you can find it through Rose Atija's Twitter or on bioarchive. Maybe we can remember to post it in the description.
So back to, I guess, conferences. What are your initial thoughts on the CompBio conferences you go to and the diversity you've seen there?
So the CompBio conferences I usually go to are ISMB, and that's really been it. There's
Mm.
been some local ones, Mid-Atlantic Bioinformatics Conference that happens usually on Penn's campus every year. Back in my day when I started, it was free. Then there's been a
Back in
small
my day.
registration fee in the recent years. So usually that's in some sort of warm month. I should probably look into that. But I like that conference too because it's local, like, people from Philly and New Jersey and just the surrounding area. Those have been really the only two that I frequent. I didn't get to go to ASHG last year in an official capacity, like to present or anything, but I'm still keeping an eye on it. There's sometimes a good amount of people who do bioinformatics at ASHG, or at least genomics. So this year it's in Denver, so a little bit of a hike.
It's in Denver. I've my first time at XHG was last year. I was actually surprised with the amount of diversity that I saw there.
I'm sorry, I didn't answer that question. Go ahead.
It's okay. I've also been to like some of the Cold Spring Harbor bioinformatics and genomics focused conferences, and those have definitely been less diverse.
Mm.
So
I think ISMB last year, the 2023 one in Lyon, was nice. That was technically a joint conference between ECCB and ISCB. So it was diverse in the sense that there were European attendees of different European countries that you wouldn't have been able to see at the regular like the smaller but still big ISMB meeting. So in that sense, it was nice like connecting with and just being around a different group of scientists. It was
mhm.
refreshing. But I discovered Sandra was there, I think by just like seeing her name on some sort of like announcement or whatever. Or just looking at attendees and like so once I discovered Sandra was there and we went out to dinner the first night, I was just kind of, you know, using that as time to connect with some familiar face because there was or someone who looked like me because I can't remember. I think there was one other person who's connected to BWCB and maybe one or two other people that I may have recognized, but this isn't a conference of over 1,200 people.
Oh,
I think
wow.
ISCB offers a lot of opportunities for trainees to participate for a low or no cost. Like if you volunteer, or, if you volunteer at the registration desk or like on the tech team to kind of help out in sessions. I think if you're like an
Hmm.
undergrad and are also looking for a way to go to the conference for low and no cost, that's a good way. But in terms of attendees, people who can go and just, enjoy the time and the space there, it was low. Not that this was surprising, but it just is. ASHG is a little different because it's a huge conference and it has, excuse me, it's a huge conference that, even if it's in the US, still has a bit of an international appeal. So there are usually at least a small handful of people of color at ASHG. And I think sometimes it could be related to the topics discussed and just like what people research. There is an acknowledgement of that in the HG space. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Festival of Genomics is like. It's a little less academic, so it's very industry focused, and some view it more as a trade show for industry, but it's very diverse, and that's a big conference. They're expecting at least 3,000 people, I think they said. And
What?
then, yeah, it's in the thousands.
I
And
didn't
then
know that.
Recom is probably going to be about 500 to 600 people, and that is very academic. So, yeah, I'm excited.
And we've talked a little bit about, sorry, we've talked a little bit about diversity at CompBio conferences through one of the papers that we co-authored, which is called 10 Simple Rules for Creating a Global Network in Computational Biology. And in there, we talked about the diversity of award recipients for the ISCB yearly awards and nominations, and how it's really not at the time. I honestly don't know how they're doing now, but the quote is ISCB is twice as likely to confer honors on U.S. affiliated scientists than
Mm,
expected based on authorship demographics in the field.
mhm,
And I think they're actively working toward being more representative in terms of who's nominated and who's awarded
mhm,
in all of demographics, whether
mhm,
that's gender or how you identify, like race. And
mm,
so I think we're definitely working towards being more representative and trying to be more diverse, but I think that there's still a long way to go.
mhm. I think one strategic thing that conferences can do is let us and groups like us know when nominations for that type of thing opens. Because even if we can't like create a whole event around it, I think my dream would be like, everyone comes to like a nominate-a-thon, and, you come and you like learn about different people in our community that you want to nominate. And like before you leave, in like 10 minutes, you submit a nomination for that person. But like, I think, yeah, one strategic thing that people can do from these conferences or societies is let us know, and organizations like us know, when these are opening, so that we can try to create some momentum around nominations and just
Mhm.
bringing it into people's awareness, help to extend your reach into communities like us. For those communities that would like to participate in such recognitions.
Yeah, and we do that through speakers as well. We've had
Mhm,
multiple conferences reach out to us specifically and ask, like, hey, do you know anyone in this specific area for speakers? Which I think is pretty a reasonable ask. And one
mhm,
of the reasons why we have like the directory on our website, so
mhm,
people can go through and look and find people who might fit their bill so that
mhm,
they can be more strategic and thoughtful about being diverse in what kind of speakers they're inviting versus just inviting their friends.
mhm,
Um, So I think that's something that could probably be more normalized with a lot of groups like us, is going to these professional networks and being like, "Hey, give us some names. We'd like to sponsor some people to come to our conference or
Yeah.
speak in our seminar series."
And if you're wondering how to get to that page specifically on our website, you can go to our website and then hover over the Connect tab. And right under there, the second option is Advanced Member Search. And through that, you can literally filter and sort people by different criteria in our membership database. It has everything you need to know besides their direct contact information, which we keep private. If you would like to be, if this person, you go on their LinkedIn or their website and you can't see a direct email, reach out to us so we can at least do a warm introduction before we pass along that person's direct email. We're happy to help with that. That's a specific task dedicated to our membership team. So if you have any questions, you can also email membership@blackwomencompile.org to reach that team quicker. Hey CompBio Cafe community, exciting news to share with you. We are opening up sponsorship opportunities for our podcast. If you're in the CompBio field and want to reach a dynamic audience of scientists and leaders, this opportunity is for you. Picture your brand, company, or community featured in our episodes, reaching thousands of listeners. We offer tiered packages with shoutouts, promotional materials, and even a sponsored episode. Your support fuels not only CompBio Cafe's growth, but the growth of our nonprofit, the Black Women in Computational Biology Network. This helps us to bring more diverse perspectives to the forefront through our scientific storytelling. If you're interested and want to partner with us, please email podcast@blackwomencompbio.org. Let's drive progress and build community in CompBio together.
All right. What are some other things that I guess we talk about, like, being diverse, but also fostering a sense of belonging at these conferences? Do you think about that? Like, when you're at a conference, do you ever feel like you don't belong? And if so, what would make you feel more included?
I think there are times when, I don't mind experiencing things by myself. I'm someone who does things alone a lot. So sometimes it can be intimidating if you are an introvert who also hasn't experienced a lot of conferences before, to like go into a room where there's like a luncheon happening and just be comfortable sitting at a table of strangers.
Mhm.
I think the conferences sometimes level the playing field because like almost everyone's wearing a name tag. And like that can be something that you focus on, just saying hi. No, I usually am just like, hi, my name is Jenea. What's your name? And that's like a pretty baseline thing that a lot of people do at conferences. But I think that could be an area where people feel the most isolated if they're at a conference alone, or like, they're not with their company or their lab. And there's a lot
Mhm.
of that natural organic networking happening that people may not have had a chance to tap into. So I felt like that in the past, and I just kind of like focus on the content, my sessions, and,
Mhm.
maybe not every conference is going to be super successful with coming away with a whole bunch of new friends, maybe new
Right. Yeah.
connections in other ways. But yeah. Yeah. How about
I
you?
feel like the times that I felt like, "Oh my god, like, I need someone to talk to," was when, like, something controversial, or either controversial or something that wasn't delivered with care was said at a conference. Like,
Mm,
for example, like, population genetics talks
yeah.
sometimes make me
Mhm.
feel very icky
Yeah.
when they talk about admixture, or, just including race in genomic studies. It's not done appropriately most of the times, and so I'm just like, I'll see something and I'm looking around in the room like, y'all just saw that too? Y'all heard
Mhm,
that? Like,
mhm,
we're okay with that? So I feel like there's a level of, I guess, the sociology part of what we do, which is oftentimes overlooked.
mhm,
I feel like as scientists, as a field, we need to kind of set some better standards when it comes to discussing things.
mhm,
Even things not about race. Like I remember there was a talk and the person that gave the talk said like healthy individuals versus diseased individuals or whatever, something like that. And
mhm,
apparently, or unhealthy pregnancies versus healthy pregnancies, something
mhm,
like that. And it was like using stigmatizing language like that is not, we don't all know, there's no baseline training of like how to best talk about the populations that we're studying without using stigmatizing language. So,
mhm. I think, yeah, that can feel icky sometimes when those things are happening, and then you just have, like, no one to talk about that with or debrief that with.
yeah, it's like, is anybody else hearing this? So,
I think that is kind of one of the reasons I started BWCB, because I felt like I can't be the only one hearing what I'm hearing in just certain situations where it really mattered. So I know one thing that, oh, now I'm blanking on the name. I think it's called Benning Singletons. Have you heard of it?
mm-mm.
It's this initiative, I think. I Okay, you can become a singleton. But, like, I think they basically intentionally have meetups and ways that people can connect with each other when they're the only one going to a conference or, like,
Oh,
a science event.
mm-hmm.
Um,
That's cute.
so I think that's really cool, especially if you're, like, international and you may not know literally anyone or just
Mm-hmm.
may need some help, like, navigating the local city and just enjoying it a little bit more if it's somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's that. I think another
That's nice.
aspect is making sure that your conference has adequate ADA accommodations, and I think it's hard if you don't ask who needs it, but even if you don't ask, I really, really feel like we should be in a default situation where we have interpreters in every room or things are being
Caption.
somehow, you know what I mean? Like solid directions for where people should be sitting and special sections for people with wheelchairs. I looked at a tweet from Raven, the science maven, and she is dealing with long COVID, and and as a result, she's experiencing hearing loss. So she's
Oh
technically
man.
hard of hearing. And she said she was at a conference and she was having a hard time hearing the speaker. And so she like moved up a little bit to look at the ASL interpreter. And then he signed to her, "Are you hearing?" And she said yes, and he left. But like but she was so her tweet was like, "Should I have said that, like, I was hard of hearing specifically?" And, like, people were responding like, "No, that was completely unprofessional." Like, there's not just hard of hearing people that need actually
Right.
interpreters. There could be someone who doesn't have vocal cords and needs an interpreter there to help them
Right.
ask a question. You know what I mean? So these things should absolutely be shaking us to our core that that was
That's
unbelievably
crazy.
unprofessional, but why not
Yeah.
make it a baseline for wherever we're at? And I get it, budget this
Mhm.
and budget that, but if we have enough money to put the big sign that everyone takes a picture in front of, I think we have enough money to square away so people can
Right.
enjoy the experience.
I definitely think at the very least, the companies that are helping to sponsor these conferences could put
Mhm.
money towards that. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
y'all throwing parties,
Mm,
open
mm,
bars,
mm.
we can pay for an interpreter. Come
Please,
on.
please. I forgot about
Oh,
that
wow.
let's not get
Mhm.
started on where some of these
Yeah.
little options are, because it's not at your local mom and pop. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Yeah. We can definitely think more about how we're spending and how that affects the local economy when we're planning these
Mhm,
conferences.
mhm, mhm.
Oh,
J
that is so crazy. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I'm not on Twitter like that. Well, that's all I got.
Okay.
Maybe conferences could put more travel scholarships, have more companies sponsor travel for people,
Mhm,
mm, make it more parent friendly.
mm.
I
What would you
know
there as a parent?
a reputable daycare situation, or yeah, I guess that's it really.
What, have you experienced in the past in terms of options?
Well, I almost for one of the Cold Spring Harbor ones, they do offer childcare, but it was like a childcare at an affiliated daycare facility that was not near the
Mm,
campus.
mm,
And it was in New York, and so it was more expensive than we paid for childcare in North Carolina
mhm,
for a week, and so it just didn't make sense.
mhm, mhm,
So, like we have right, we're going to conferences in Boston and Cambridge and all these places of high cost of living. You have to think about is the childcare that you're offering going to be accessible to people who really need it?
mhm,
So, and at that time I was in grad school, girl.
mhm,
I
mhm.
was not about to pay 1,700 for a week. I was like, no.
Like rent and bills, that's like for 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And it was not even like guaranteed. It was like, oh, we only have so many slots. And I'm like, I want you to think about all these scientists and how many of them have kids
yeah.
probably that need childcare. Probably a lot of them.
Interesting. So this will probably
So,
be an ongoing conversation, especially as we experience these upcoming conferences more. And just so you know, we'll be kind of on the ground, live reporting some of the insights and kind of like what we're experiencing at these conferences, because we want to make some of this information widely available. So definitely stay in touch with us, at least on our Instagram. That's probably where we'll be posting. So thanks for listening today, y'all. And our Instagram is at BWCompBio. I'm so sorry, it's different than our other handles. The first time I tried to create one, we were blocked immediately by the platform. So I had to change it.
oh,
That's just a little BWCB fact.
love that.
Alrighty. So
Alrighty. Thank you so much to our audience for listening to this CompBio Cafe. Again, if you have any questions, send us an email at podcast@blackwomencompbio.org or leave us a voicemail at 1302-715-BWCB.
I'm Jenea.
And I'm Melyssa. See you guys in the next episode.
The CompBio Cafe Podcast is brought to you by Ijama Miramiku, Melissa Minto, and Jenea Adams. Learn more about us at blackwomencompbio.org and also tap into ways that you can become a member or a supporter today. Thank you for listening.